So we'll move on to item 6.3. We have a delegation. I have three people here. Amina Khan, Zain, Ghadially, Miriam, and Mirza, regarding the days of significance. Are the three of you right there? Okay, perfect. So, good evening, and thank you for your delegation. At Peel District School Board, we highly value input from students, parents, and the community. Delegations are a crucial part of our engagement process. As outlined in our recent strategic plan, community engagement is one of our 4 primary goals. Tonight, you will have 10 minutes to speak according to our governance directives. Please ensure your remarks are respectful and professional. Offensive language or negative personal references about any individual will be ruled out of order. After your remarks, I will invite, as you've heard, trustees to ask any clarifications. Have any questions before we begin? Okay, please commence.
Thank you, Chair, for accepting our delegation today. We'd just like to introduce ourselves first. My name is Zain Ghadially. I've been a teacher in the Peel Board for the last 20 years.
My name is Amina. I've been a teacher with the Peel District School Board for the past 8 years.
My name is Miriam Mirza, and I've been a teacher with the Peel District School Board for, it's been a large number of years, so I don't even know.
So the purpose of our delegation today is twofold. We want to continue to affirm the board's recognition of Nakba Day on the days of calendar after their review. And secondly, to call on the board to make anti-Palestinian racism training mandatory for administrators and teachers. I'd like to first discuss the issue regarding Nakba Day. Days of significance such as Nakba Day recognize the intrinsic value that cultures and identities place on historical events that have shaped their present conditions. A commemoration of a day of significance is hence, by its very nature, a conscious expression of memory, cultural practice, and lived experience. When public institutions, such as our school board, engage in publicly recognizing cultural days of significance, such as Nakba Day, they embark on an important journey that is guided by principles of inclusivity, affirmation of lived experiences, acknowledgement of historical realities, and authentic perspectives that weave the lives of our students, staff, and families we serve. As Taha Gaur from Justice for All recently pointed out in the Misaga News, Nakba remains central to Palestinian identity, making the moment when the systemic erasure of their culture, identity, and history began. The Peel District School Board was right to include Nakba Day of Remembrance on its calendar of significant days, a move that recognizes these historical realities and narratives, ensuring that Palestinian and Arab students feel seen and included. We understand that the board leadership and trustees are in the process of reviewing the criteria for recognizing current days of significance calendar after concerns were raised that the recognition of Nakba Day leads to politicization and division amongst our students and staff. We would instead argue that it does the opposite. By educating students and staff members about the historical realities of Palestinians, it breaks down barriers and creates empathy for each other and informs our trauma-informed teaching practices in the classroom. We urge you to apply the board's own anti-oppressive, anti-colonial, and anti-racist framework articulated in the anti-racist policy towards this matter. As a result of the incredible work done by members of the Black and Indigenous communities, the board has made significant strides in attempting to dismantle the settler colonial project by engaging in building a critical consciousness among its staff and students. Whilst recognizing the historical and cultural specificity of this important work, we urge the board to impart the critical consciousness of this work towards addressing anti-Palestinian racism. One of the key board initiatives towards dismantling the settler colonial project is the integration of culturally responsive pedagogy through an anti-oppressive lens. The aim of this approach is not about creating division or politicizing issues, but to recognize and articulate the historical and current asymmetry of power and create policies and practices to stop the erasure of students of marginalized identities and to uplift their experiences in schools. We must be clear that the key mechanism that enables settler colonialism has been the collective endeavor by the state and its public institutions to make the dispossessed invisible, to simply forget them, or when forced to recognize to pick and choose that which is politically expedient and does not contest the status quo. When we affirm cultures from an anti-oppressive framework, it becomes clear that where cultures begin and end cannot be decided by institutions outside those cultures being represented. The cultural identity of Palestinians is interwoven through their experience of the Nakba and the struggle for self-determination. While we appreciate that one should not essentialize an identity, and Palestinian culture, of course, is rich in multiple forms of expression, we find that those who attempt to entangle culture from struggles for self-determination do so from a position of power and privilege, defined by access to statehood and the rights that follow. For modern Palestinians, the commemoration of Nakba is a present action that keeps a collective sense of nationhood alive. Now, with reference to the Nakba Day in schools on May 15th, students from the Palestinian Student Association at my school have asked me to read out the following statement. As a part of the student body, we feel very hurt by the field board's decision to disallow the word Nakba to be articulated during Nakba Day activities without any concern or empathy for the validation of our Palestinian identity. In light of what has been said above, we also think that a mandatory APR training for staff and administration has become a necessity. Our anti-racism policy clearly states, and I'm quoting from page 13, timely updates of policies and practices will allow for ongoing contextual analysis and revision of school curriculum and critical assessment of the ways in which Indigenous, Black, and racialized identities are being weaved into the curriculum, especially with respect to the anti-colonial and anti-racist perspectives. This includes, but not limited to, inclusion of Tamil identities and histories, for example, Holocaust education, Palestinian experiences, and a curriculum that reflects the diversities across Asian and South Asian identities. Hence, in regards to affirming Palestinian identity, we are obligated as a board under the anti-racism policy to ensure that Palestinian experiences, which include historical experience, take place in school, and further attempts must be made to ensure that erasure of Palestinian identities is stopped. Finally, and frankly, I want to say, we can't just create a policy that opens up a theoretical space for Palestinian students without allowing students and staff to discuss Palestinian history, as that would be a violation of the anti-racism policy. Thank you for hearing my thoughts and arguments here. I will now pass on the mic to Amina.
So like my colleague Zain mentioned, I would like to stress the importance of keeping Nakba Day on the calendar for the days of significance, and that there be a mandatory anti-Palestinian racism training for all staff and admin. In reference to the previous committee meeting, I will address the legal implications and subsequent human rights violations of the potential removal of the recognition of Nakba Day, as it relates to the identity and lived experiences of our Palestinian students and families. The recognition of Nakba Day is not political. It is necessary. Denying historical events that pertain to the history of Palestinians dehumanizes Palestinians and silences the voices of Palestinian students and their families. Furthermore, the decision to review the days of significance shortly before the day Nakba Day on May the 15th, when all other significant days prior to were observed, is discriminatory and in violation of Policy 51 on human rights. In particular, the anti-racism policy, which covers adverse differential treatment that results in discrimination under the code. The lack of transparency about the review process and taking down the calendar was not in accordance with the board's anti-racism policy and the human rights code. As stated previously by my colleague Zain, the decision made to remove the calendar with the Peel community is concerning, especially when considering the PDSB's unfortunate history with regards to the ministry review in 2020 and ministry directives, which according to the PDSB website is required to create greater racial equity and interrupt systemic inequities, and are not managed like a task or to-do list, but rather create deep structural and cultural changes that infuses the core values of equity, inclusion, and human rights into everyday practices, programs, and policies. Days of significance are one very important way to create racial equity because they systemize inclusion. Indeed, what is on the Days of Significance calendar guides equity work in schools across the board every day and all year round. When Nakba Day was removed, it sent a chilling message that Palestinian experiences were not part of the board's equity, inclusion, and human rights priorities. As educators, we are responsible to make sure we are adhering to these anti-oppressive and anti-racist education policies. When my Palestinian students and parents are asked me why the calendar was removed, they were no longer able to see Nakba Day on the calendar. I was at a loss for words. One parent even told me that she was happy when the PDSB was the first school board to recognize the Nakba, and that it was a good first step towards addressing anti-Palestinian racism. I have students in my class who are Palestinian and have had asked me if it was safe for them to share the grandparents' lived experiences through the Nakba with the class. When days that are significant to the PDSB community are removed, it tells students their identities and lived experiences are not significant, which is not anti-oppressive and anti-racist education and practice. According to the board's Human Rights Office training resource, anti-Palestinian racism is a form of anti-Arab racism that silences, excludes, erases, stereotypes, defames, or dehumanizes Palestinians or their narratives. This includes place of origin, ancestry, denial of existence, denial of code of ground, stereotypical microaggressions, and the lack of school support. And that another major impact of anti-Palestinian racism is the harm and trauma caused by the targeting of a racial identity. Anti-Palestinian racism intensifies the anxiety of being Palestinian and can lead to Palestinians to hide their identity for fear of being persecuted. This can have serious consequences, potentially resulting in isolation, depression, and other mental health issues. After recently attending a staff meeting workshop on trauma and
You've reached your 10 minutes. I've given you 30 seconds extra on the 10 minutes. So you've reached your delegation. Thanks.
Am I able to speak?
Yep, there is a group. You came as one delegation. 10 minutes.
That's
I would ask
painful.
that you consider allowing me to speak, because I'm here to speak on behalf of the many students who've been impacted by the removal of the Nakba. I'm here to share the personal stories and anecdotes.
Was
of
it
students.
communicated clearly to you about the 10 minutes for your group? It's in the forum.
Well, would you allow her to speak, please, as she is talking about her student experiences?
Should I go back and ask the other previous people to speak more than 10 minutes? Is that fair?
Sure.
Because they're already gone. Everyone knew the rules getting into this, and that's why I clearly stated 10 minutes. So I appreciate your delegation, and I'm not trying to cut it short. We have
This is very shameful.
we have three
This is
other,
very shameful.
we have three
Shame
other
on you.
delegations. So I'm sorry. But you have to stop.
Brad, can I give her time out of my
No.
delegation?
No. Anyway,
Could I ask that you initiate a timer for the remaining
have.
delegations, that
I
they
have 2 timers going.
visible timer to the speakers so that they're aware of.
Please, you all have cell phones. You can start your own
Okay.
timer. You're more than welcome to.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. So, yes,
Through you, Chair, sorry. So maybe for the others, I think what we'll do is when we start, I'll start it, and then when we get halfway, I'll go like this, and I'll just show 5 minutes, and when we get 2 minutes out, I'll go like this, and then 1 minute out, I'll go like this. We always give, a little bit extra time to kind of wrap up, but
Thank you.
that'll be helpful for the remaining delegations. I'll try and call out a time.
I think that's kind of.
Have any questions?
I appreciate the comment from you, Trustee Alice, but we all have a phone. Please start the time. We do time speeches, so we're good with that. And I think we can all regulate our own time. We're going to hear 3 other delegations on this topic, and we've heard previous ones, so we'll go through that. So the next step, as I said, is that we go and ask questions. Do we have any questions of clarification? See none here. Do I see, let me check online. Seeing none online. So do I have someone put this on the floor for receipt? Trustee Bailey puts it on the floor, seconded by Trustee Alves. All those in favor of receipt of the delegation? So approved. We'll now move on to delegation, the 4th one. So it's Ibrahim Baig regarding the days of significance. Are you here? Yes, perfect.
Can she be a part of my delegation, because I don't have like 10 minutes of speech, so maybe she can start and do 2-3 minutes and then I can do the rest.
I will allow it. but that's not the process.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
And
you.
you will be given 10 minutes in total,
Sir.
okay? So, as I stated before each delegation tonight, good evening, and thank you for your delegation. At Peel District School Board, we highly value input from students, parents, and the community. Delegations are a crucial part of our engagement process. As outlined in our recent strategic plan, community engagement is one of our 4 primary goals. Tonight, you will have 10 minutes to speak. According to our governance directives, please ensure your remarks are respectful and professional. Offensive language or negative personal reference about any individual will be ruled out of order. After your remarks, I will invite trustees to ask any clarifying questions. Do we have any questions before we begin? Please begin.
Thank you so much. Again, my name is Miriam Mirza, and I'm a teacher in this board. I'm a parent and a community member. I'm going to go very, very quickly, so prepare for speed. I'm here to express my deep concern regarding the removal of Nakba Day from the Days of Significance calendar and the board's continued failure to combat anti-Palestinian racism. The decision is not only harmful, but also fundamentally hypocritical given our commitment to teaching about the harm of settler colonialism in our English classes. Nakba Day, commemorated on May 15th, marks the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in 1948. It is a reflection and recognition of the suffering endured by these people, much like other days of remembrance that acknowledge historical injustices. This date is not intended to vilify any other state or group of people, and in fact can be used as an educational opportunity to combat misunderstandings that could lead to anti-Semitism. Earlier this year, we booked a display case and sent out information about Nakba Day with the expectation that our Muslim Student Association and Palestinian students would be able to share their heritage and identity through this display. Days before the display was to be arranged, I got a call into my classroom from an administrator telling me to put a pin in it. Despite emails to that administration and the equity department at this board, no one could explain what was going on. When we had a new principal come in, I asked again about the display and the announcements, and the administration called the equity department and was told again to put a pin in it. I find it interesting that no one wants to put these directions in writing. My Palestinian students were devastated. One of my students pointed out that though through our new English curriculum, we educate students about the devastating impacts of settler colonialism, we explore narratives that highlight the pain, loss, and resilience of Indigenous peoples on Turtle Island. By removing Nakba Day from our calendar, we send a contradictory message. We teach our students to empathize with those affected by colonialism, yet we deny the Palestinian community the recognition of their historical trauma. As my student told me, I felt unheard as my teachers haven't wanted to speak to me about what's going on in Palestine. My teachers are meant to be a resource where I can share. I haven't been able to do that. In addition, she tells me that she's felt distracted and unable to focus in class due to what's happening in Palestine. And the fact that we're unable to speak about it makes things even worse. Certainly, we do not advocate for erasure and silencing in this board, and yet this is how our students are feeling. Another student pointed out that it is disheartening to see that while our school curriculum is rightly incorporating the histories and struggles of Indigenous peoples, it is simultaneously sidelining the plight of Palestinians. The recent changes in the English curriculum, which emphasize Indigenous struggles and resilience, should also include the narrative of Palestinian suffering and resilience. This would not only provide a more comprehensive understanding of global injustices, but also foster empathy and critical thinking among students. When I reflect on the experiences of my students, I wonder how does their experience align with culturally responsive pedagogy, with the identity-based, student-centered, anti-oppressive, anti-colonial approach that Peel has been publicly endorsing and embracing. I do not believe that it does, and this inconsistency undermines the integrity of our educational values in Peel. Additionally, as our MSA students have emphasized during their walkout on Friday, the situation in Palestine is intrinsically linked to broader issues of Islamophobia and racism. Portrayal of Palestinians in many media outlets, public discourses often leans toward negative stereotypes that fuel anti-Muslim sentiment. This bias is not only a form of racism, but a specific manifestation of Islamophobia. The dehumanization and marginalization of Palestinians reinforces prejudices against Muslims globally, exacerbating societal divisions and perpetuating discrimination. It is crucial for educational institutions to address these interlinked issues. By excluding the Palestinian narrative, we inadvertently contribute to the erasure of their struggle and fail to challenge the Islamophobia that pervades our society. Including comprehensive discussions on Palestine can help dismantle harmful stereotypes and promote a more inclusive and just world. This reaffirms the need for board-wide resources and training around anti-Palestinian racism and its impacts on our students now and in the future. Removing Nakba Day dismisses the lived experience of Palestinian students and their families within our community. It erases their history and silences their voices, contributing to a broader narrative of exclusion and marginalization. It is crucial for our board to be a beacon of inclusivity and understanding where all students see their histories and identities acknowledged and respected. Before I end, I want to share the experience shared with me by a current Peel student. She says, my family has been directly affected by the genocide in Palestine. My cousin and second cousin died on their way to school on April 3rd, 2024. For years, my father's side of the family has been trying to escape the warfare. I often think about how my life could have been so severely different if my parents didn't make the decision to come to Canada. In a different universe, I'm just another Palestinian girl suffering within the war. I can only hope that you feel disturbed that innocent people have died, but on a more personal level, I hope that you see how unjust the removal of Nakba Day and the erasure of my identity in the face of this trauma is, especially since you are working in education. I cannot reiterate enough, maintaining Nakba Day on the calendar aligns with our broader educational goals, provides an opportunity for critical engagement, dialogue about complex historical and political issues, encourages students to develop a nuanced understanding of global histories and our ongoing impacts, aligns with board stated equity goals and processes. Let us not be selective in our empathy and our commitment to truth. Keeping Nakba Day on the Days of Significance calendar is not just an act of solidarity with the Palestinian community, but a reaffirmation of our dedication to comprehensive and honest education that is culturally responsive, anti-racist, and anti-oppressive. Thank you.
You
Would you like to know how many units we have?
you have about 5 minutes. I'll give you 5 minutes, okay?
Yes. My name is Ibrahim Baig, and I come to you as a concerned member of the community, and who is concerned by the PDSB's decision to remove its to remove Nakba Day from its days of significance calendar very shortly after including it, apparently due to pressure from certain groups and politicians. Every year, the Palestinian, Arab, and Muslim community in Ontario commemorate this day on May 15th to honor and recognize their ancestors, the indigenous Palestinians, thousands of whom were killed and more than 750,000 were displaced from their homes. The name Nakba, which means catastrophe, was given to this day to describe the tragedy that resulted in displacement and killing of a magnitude as massive as it was. Inclusion of Nakba Remembrance Day in the calendar was in line with the PDSB's Policy 54, which is centered around the principle of anti-oppressive and inclusive curriculum assessment practices and recognizes the importance of giving opportunities to students to share narratives, perspectives, curiosities, interests, and insights about their experiences of the world. Recognition of Nakba Remembrance Day in PDSB's calendar of days of significance was also in line with the Ontario Human Rights Code and the board's policy on human rights called Policy 51, which states, and I quote, PDSB recognizes that discrimination in Canada and in the education system continues to adversely impact the right of individuals to equality in services and employment, and is committed to dismantling oppressive practices and structures in service of the PDSB students and staff. Similar days, including Holocaust Remembrance Day, Tamil Genocide Remembrance Day, Orange Shirt or Truth and Reconciliation Day, National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls are also a part of the PDSB Days of Significance calendar. If PDSB decides to remove the Nakba Day from its calendar, such an action would be reflective of profound inconsistency in its decision-making. It would also be reflective of racism and discrimination against and exclusion of 13% of PDSB's students who either identified as Muslim or Arab as per the 2023 Count Me In survey conducted by the board. There has been a dramatic increase in hate crimes against the Muslim community following October 7. Ontario's police chief reported that reported last year a staggering 1,600% spike in Islamophobic and anti-Palestinian hate crimes in just 2 months after October 7, 2023. In an environment where the Palestinian and Muslim community feels targeted and isolated, it is important that schools be made a place where all students feel welcome and included. This can be achieved by promoting the cultural continuity of the Palestinian race. And when I say Palestinian race, I mean Muslims, Christians, and people of other faiths as well. By recognizing and remembering difficulties that their ancestors had to face during Nakba. Many students of the PDSB are descendants of Nakba survivors. In this context, I consider it pertinent to state what Education Minister Stephen Lecce said in 2021, and I quote, it is unacceptable that Muslim students continue to face discrimination in our schools, on our playgrounds, and in communities across this country. I would also add Palestinians. Okay, let me be very clear and categorical. Just as truth and reconciliation does not promote hostility and division, recognition of Nakba Remembrance Day also is not divisive and hostile. Just as criticizing Iran and Saudi Arabia is not Islamophobic, criticizing India is not Hindu-phobic, mentioning Israel in historical context is not anti-Semitic. Debates and discussions are not unsafe. Rather, it is unsafe to suppress curiosity and isolate a race from the curriculum and education system. Academic achievement can be enabled wherein all students feel included and welcome, and when their well-being, both physical and mental, is given a priority. I request and implore the board to uphold its commitment to equity and inclusion by not removing Nakba Remembrance Day from its calendar of significance days. Schools are not isolation centers. They are a place to share and promote different cultures, their history, and diversity of different perspectives. Our students cannot be expected.
Mr. Baig, your time, 5 minutes is up.
Just one last sentence. Our students cannot be expected to be isolated from the outside world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, as I stated, we're going to go to trustees and ask if they have any questions and clarification. Seeing none here, let me just check. Fine, seeing no questions online. Do I have someone to put this on the floor for receipt? Trustee Bailey puts it on the floor, seconded by Trustee Alice. All those in favor of receipt? So carried. So thank you very much for your delegation. We'll go on to the next one. 6.5. We have another group of 3 people. Shauna Kabia, Adham Diabas, Simmi Sekhon, I think. I'm sorry about the names. Again, to present on regarding the days of significance. I believe they are online. I think I see Adham. Are you going to be talking for the group?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Simmi is going ahead first. Simmi, if you can please unmute and go ahead.
Okay, so just to remind you that as a group, you get 10 minutes. So please manage your time wisely, and you may commence. Simmi, are you ready to commence?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, please start.
So hello, everyone. My name is Simmi Sekhon, and I'm speaking on behalf of Brampton for Palestine, and I'm also a former Peel District student. Today, I would like to address the board's recent decision to remove Nakba Day from the Days of Significance calendar. Nakba Remembrance Day marks the ethnic cleansing and mass displacement of over 750,000 Palestinians that occurred to facilitate the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. Inclusion of Nakba Remembrance Day is a crucial step that aligns with the board's human rights and discrimination policy, and we ask that this day is not removed from the Days of Significance calendar, especially if the board is truly committed to human rights education. The refusal to acknowledge this day and the realities of Palestinians who are displaced is a form of anti-Palestinian racism, and we hope the board can show us that they are committed to creating a diverse and welcoming environment for students. That's all I have to say, and I'll hand it off to Adham. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Adham, and I am a Palestinian. I address you all today as a Palestinian who was born and raised in the West Bank, but moved to Canada as a young immigrant and completed my grade 9 to grade 12 studies in the Peel District School Board system. Throughout my high school studies, my freedom and right to express my identity was always denied and pushed to the side, not just on a peer-to-peer level where other students would often mistake Palestine for Pakistan, because there's absolutely no historical information regarding the Palestinian identity. Like, we absolutely do not exist in your historical educational curriculum. How could that be? But also on a systematic and structural level of the institution itself, where I was not allowed by the teachers to even do a presentation on my heritage, ethnic diversity, or my family tree. That was 7 years ago. And students in the Peel District School Board system are still going through this silencing and suppression for the past few months, and as of right now, which is a direct violation of the Peel District School Board Policy 54, Equity and Inclusive Education. And I quote under application of policy, it is intended that this policy will support members of the wider Peel Board community to understand and fulfill our shared obligation to anti-oppression, equity, and inclusive education. That is to promote the dignity and intersection and equality for all identities protected under the code in all aspects of learning and teaching throughout the Peel District School Board. My grandma, who is 85 years old, lived through the Nakba and is a direct product of the horrible injustices that took place. My grandma is older than the state of Israel, and that's just a historical fact and not a personal subjective opinion. Whether you like it or not, there is no debate. The 1948 Nakba catastrophe produced 750,000 refugees, of whom over 45,000 live in Canada. What happened to Palestinians on May 15th of 1948, and how the establishment of the country of Israel was built on top of the ruins of the Palestinian society, is a historical fact that is absolutely undeniable and is well documented, validated, and agreed upon by the vast majority of Israelis and Palestinian historians, such as Elian Pape and many other fields of study. And I quote again from Policy 54, the policy is intended to support members of the board to understand, identify, and address and eliminate the biases, barriers, and power dynamics that limit students' prospects for learning. How is the Peel District School Board system going to adhere and enforce its policy to eliminate the biases, barriers, and power dynamics that limit students' prospects for learning if you are not presenting the students with the complete historical facts needed for this upcoming young generation to form their own belief systems? Nakba Remembrance Day is not a political statement, but a factual and undeniable atrocity and an actual catastrophe that took place. How are we supposed to move forward from history and create peace in the future if we are hiding, lying, and repressing the historical knowledge from the younger generation? Presenting the students with the historical facts and context is what distinguishes this matter from it being a political one to a factual one. The misconception of recognizing and adding Nakba Remembrance Day to Peel District Schools Board calendar is a very dangerous narrative. And it's the usual approach that the racist, extremist Zionists use to silence and oppress the Palestinian community and should not be allowed to influence your righteous decisions. I would like to take this a step higher and speak very clearly about the pushback the board is facing in regards to adding Nakba Remembrance Day to the school calendar. The Zionist racist individuals are still trying to force the narrative that anything Palestinians have to say is political or anti-Semitic and shouldn't be supported. While at this point, everyone in the world and the public opinion has awoken to the clear and distinct separation between the country of Israel and the religion of Judaism. That narrative is inherently racist and is rooted in the dehumanization of anti-Palestinian racism and has been the rise and is very clearly demonstrated through the different delegations that took place today and other days, which directly contradicts policy number 54 and also contradicts the point the individuals are making, as I mentioned previously. The creation of the country of Israel and how it permanently displaced hundreds of thousands of Palestinians and killed another 15,000 as merely historical facts shouldn't be so hard to talk about. Criticism of Israel's war and occupation is not anti-Semitism, and claiming that actually harms the fight against the very real and growing threat posed by anti-Semitism. Many of our Jewish comrades who are out there in the streets every single weekend fully renounce Zionism, and completely detach and draw a clear line between Zionism and Judaism. Many Jewish organizations, such as Independent Jewish Voices, Jewish Voices for Peace, and Jews Say No to Genocide are completely against the old-fashioned rhetoric of any criticism of Israel being labeled as anti-Semitism. It's getting old, it's getting overused, so let's stop it. No one is asking for the Peel District School Board to go political or politicize the students. We are asking very simply, we are asking the board to present the historical facts in a non-biased, non-barrier making manner in which the power dynamics can be challenged without oppressing the unconscious mind of the young generation, and by fulfilling the board's responsibility to them of supporting and growing the students to fully contribute to the society. A just and lasting peace cannot be established without addressing the Nakba and remedying its injustices towards the Palestinian people. And today, as Canadians, and you all as members of the Peel Board District Board, we can take a huge first step towards making real change happen. The Nakba is a historical fact, not a personal opinion or a political disposition. And to claim otherwise is denialism, the clear example of anti-Palestinian racism. Nakba Remembrance Day fully embodies policy number 54 of equity and inclusive education, and should absolutely be added, and the Nakba Remembrance Day should absolutely be added back to Peel District School Board's calendar of significance days with absolutely no hesitation. Thank you. That's all for me.
Shauna is unable to speak today, so that's it for our delegation.
So Shauna, you're going to be finishing this up?
Shauna is unable to speak today. She is not present. That wraps up our delegation. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. We have the end of the delegation. For the process, we look to our trustees to see if there's any questions for clarification. Seeing none, trustees? Okay, sorry, Jeff Clark, you're muted. It's a question of clarification.
Yes, I would like the delegation to clarify what they mean by Zionism. I hear that word used differently by different people. Thank you.
Zionism is the complete, unquestionable support of the Israeli state and country. We completely renounce Zionism because it goes around the real issue. Right? The issue here is not anti-Semitism. The real issue here is Zionism. Zionism is a fascist political movement that was created in the late 1900s. It has absolutely nothing to do with Judaism. The same way ISIS came around and they adapted Islam as their religion, the same way the KKK came around, adapted Christianity as religion, that's what Zionism is. It's an extreme political way of thinking that its main goal is to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions of clarification, do I have someone put this on the floor for receipt? Trustee Alves will put it on the floor. Trustee Daly will second it. All those in favor of receipt of this delegation, so received. Thank you very much. And we'll be going on to the last delegation, Mohammed Khalifa, regarding the days of significance. Are you Mohammed?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, great. So let me get started. So good evening and thank you for your delegation at Peel District School Board. We highly value input from students, parents, and the community. Delegates are a crucial part of our engagement process. As outlined in our recent strategic plan, community engagement is one of our 4 primary goals. Tonight, you will be given 10 minutes to speak. According to our governance directives, please ensure your remarks are respectful and professional. Offensive language or negative personal references about any individual will be ruled out of order. After your remarks, trustees will be invited to ask questions of clarification. Do you have any questions before we start?
I have one clarification, and you can answer now or after my delegation, but is the board, does it have the capability of guaranteeing someone's safety if they were to attend in person? Like, does the board have that capability?
I'm gonna have to defer that question and answer. I can't answer that. I can't answer that right now. That's much beyond my capability. So like everything we do, I will say that we try to ensure that staff and the public and the community are safe.
Of course, I think we all agree with you, right, in that statement. I just wanted to start, I completely agree with the past three delegations. And I'll try to keep my notes to a minimum as to not repeat and allow you some time to take back to their families. I'll start. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Mohammed Khalifa. I'm a parent of two PDSB students and a resident at Ward 9. I'm a Palestinian by birth. My grandparents were forced to flee Palestine during the catastrophe, which is the Nakba of 1948. We're here with Sandwich Hadi, a first-generation Christian Palestinian born in the diaspora, a member of Mississauga Streets Vote for Palestine, a grassroots organization advocating for Palestinian rights. Wayne Johnson, attending as a grandparent of students, a volunteer educator on Indigenous affairs in the PDSB, a third-generation European settler to this land and a resident. And Wayne's wife, Nancy Jane, who was a retired teacher. So this day that we've all been referring to, especially in the light of the ongoing atrocities in Gaza, holds significant relevance and teaches us vital lessons about history, empathy, and the pursuit of peace. Not but a Remembrance Day commemorates a time of profound suffering and displacement of Palestinian families. Just imagine being forced from your home, losing everything, and having to start over with nothing. This day helps us remember those stories and understand the pain endured by many. Why should we keep observing Remembrance Day? And here I would like to lay out why this remains an educational issue. Firstly, it's about learning history. We often hear those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. By understanding the events of the Nakba, we gain insight into the roots of the current conflict in Gaza. It provides context. Without this knowledge, we might never fully understand the struggles that continue to affect millions of lives today. It's about respect and inclusion. Our school is a tapestry of diverse backgrounds and cultures. By acknowledging Nakba Remembrance Day, we show respect to our Palestinian classmates and their families. It's crucial and everyone feels seen and valued, that everyone feels seen and valued. Ignoring this day would send the wrong message, that some histories are less important than others. We must stand together and affirm that every story matters. There, it's about promoting peace and compassion. The Nakba was a time of great loss, and by remembering it, we reinforce our commitment to never allowing such suffering to happen again. It teaches us the importance of empathy and understanding, especially in times of conflict. In the midst of the atrocities of Gaza, we need these lessons more than ever. We need to cultivate a generation that values peace over violence, understanding over ignorance. Fourth, it's about building a caring community. Observing Nakba Remembrance Day encourages dialogue and learning within our school. It helps us discuss difficult topics and come together as a more united community. When we talk about these issues, we learn to support each other better and understand each other's perspectives more deeply. This unity is essential. Last Wednesday, May 15th, on Nakba Remembrance Day, viewers all sent a letter from Mississauga Streets Vote for Palestine that was endorsed by 68 organizations, including diverse religious and indigenous groups, in which we summarized several important reasons for the PDSB to continue including Nakba Remembrance Day in the Days of Significance calendar. This is just an example of such unity. Lastly, it aligns with our school's values. PDSB's mission is to nurture and form compassionate and active global citizens. Recognizing Nakba Remembrance Day fits perfectly within this mission. It enriches our curriculum, making us more aware and engaged individuals. It challenges us to think critically about the world and our place in it. I urge the board to continue recognizing Nakba Remembrance Day. By doing so, we affirm our commitment for education, respect, compassion, community, and our core values. Especially now with the ongoing atrocities in Gaza, it is more important than ever to foster understanding and empathy among our students. Let us continue to honor this day, learn from the past, and strive for a more peaceful future. I end with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. I appreciate that. As I said, the next step in the process to ask trustees if they have any questions or clarification. Do I see any questions? on here in person, not online. So do I have someone put this on the floor to receive it? Trustee Bailey puts it on the floor. Trustee Trustee Clark seconded. All those in favor of receipt of this delegation? So be pleased. Thank you. Now we're going to go for our next report, 7.8. Bring that up here. My computer. Okay, 7.8 is the days of significance calendar review. It's an information presented by Lisa Hart, which I'll turn it over. I assume Lisa, if you are, Lisa Hart is online, so please proceed.
Thank you, and through you, Chair McDonald. This report provides an overview and update on the review of the months of recognition, days of significance procedures in response to Resolution 24-113 approved by the board at the April 17th, 2024 board meeting. This report focuses on phase 1 of the process, which specifically focuses on faith and creed days only, attached as Appendix 2 and 3. Staff have been engaged in reviewing the months of recognition days of significance calendar. The review consists of a phased approach, given the complexity of the calendar and the process for the review, along with the short timelines associated with planning for the upcoming school year. This report solely focuses on phase 1, faith and creed days only. The phases are as follows. Phase 1 involved reviewing the faith and creed days, also known as red dot days, which has now been completed. Phase 2 will involve reviewing the secular, non-faith, and non-creed days. Phase 1 has resulted in a calendar consisting of faith and creed days only and is entitled the Peel District School Board Faith and Creed Day Calendar. The newly developed Faith and Creed Day Calendar continues to identify all faith and creed days that have historically been included in the PDS months and days of significance calendar. The new calendar also continues to include specific days denoted as red dot and open red dot days. The definition for red and open dot are maintained as follows. Open red dot indicates to not schedule events on the evenings prior to these days, and red dot do not schedule events or new learnings at any time on these days. Through the review process, there's a revised list of red dot and open red dot days for the 2024-2025 school year. The determination of the newly revised list of red dot and open red dot days has been informed by the following: jurisdictional scan of other school boards, historical data pertaining to PDSB staff and or creed day requests, historical data pertaining to student absences due to religious or faith or creed observances in consultation meeting with faith leaders. The revised list of red dot and open red dot days reflects a notable reduction in the number of days denoted as red and open red dot as indicated in Appendix 2 and 3. The revised list is now aligned with neighboring boards and will support the organization's operational needs. As we move into phase 2, a review committee composed of senior staff has been established to review the months of recognition days of significance calendar with a focus on heritage months along with the secular and cultural days outside of faith and creed. This review will include a jurisdictional scan of neighbouring school boards in addition to other sectors such as the Government of Ontario. This review will lead to the establishment of a decision about next steps pertaining to the months and days of recognition. To ensure awareness and understanding of the relevant changes for months of recognition, days of significance review, a communication plan will be developed and shared with the system. The following items will be included in the communication plan: the review process for the months of recognition, days of significance calendar, the new faith and creed day calendar, the new red dot and open red dot list of faith and creed days, and next steps regarding the board's approach to months and days of recognition. We remain deeply committed to demonstrating and implementing inclusive and equitable practices and learning in working environments This concludes the presentation of the report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. I appreciate the Superintendent, Hart, for the presentation. So, who would like to put this on the floor? And this is for information only. Trustee Alice wants to put it on the floor. Who would like to second it? Trustee Clark. So I see in the appendix that we have January 29th as a red dot day. And that would explain why January is not Wednesday. No?
It is on the fourth, through Chair. It is on the fourth Wednesday of January.
Okay.
It has been scheduled on the fourth Wednesday of January, which is January 22nd.
Oh, 22nd?
Is the
Okay,
fourth.
okay, it's the fourth.
It is the fourth
Okay.
Wednesday.
So here's my, can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just want to start that conversation up.
Okay. Through you, Chair. And this is these days of faith days and creed days. What percentage of our student population and staff population does each of these represent?
Are you even able to answer that at this point in time?
If we had this, when they're basing it, she said she's basing it off of the data that was collected, so therefore they have the data.
I don't understand that, but we don't base our days on the number of people that are in our school. It's
And what are we doing?
because we have minorities, we based on minorities or majorities. It's not everyone has a faith day of religion.
Understandable. And if there's none in our school, then why are we doing it?
That's not an inclusive process. We have to be respectful for all days. So when
But
we,
I'm just not.
so, and I don't mean to speak for Superintendent Hart, but let's pick a red dot day and let's say that you can't have an event, or a red circle day, meaning don't give homework for the next day because the day before some group of in our great 105,000 student organization will be possibly celebrating something in their faith, and so you don't want to schedule homework then for the next day on that day. And so we can't just say for this school or youth school, it has to be a system-wide support.
And I agree with you 100%. So you just made a point for me.
Sorry?
You just made a point for me. So if we're doing saying all of that now,
Yeah.
okay. In the world, in the working world.
Yeah.
I've never, other than this board, I've never come across this. Where you can't, other than the school board, you can't book a meeting or give homework, assignments, exams. On those days.
I'm not disagreeing with you, and please state your case. I'm a business person. Sorry, I don't mean to be arguing, or that's not how we always speak, and then someone else speak. But in just this case, I just let you know, at my business world, I have most to say.
So if it is something that we're here preventing us from doing business, the regular business of the school, of the Peel District School Board, which is to ensure student success at the end of the day. Now we're talking about that, but yet we're told we can't do it on these days. But if it was a day for me, then I'd take the day off.
Right, and so, and sorry to,
Sorry,
Superintendent Hart, because I've been here 20 years and I was around the original creation of these days. And I can say the intent at that time was to have, to say that from a trustee's view of the situation, we didn't want to have parents come to a school council meeting or come to a board meeting. At the time, that was how we saw it. It expanded since then. When they had a faith celebration that evening, for example, right, that they were going to go and say, hey, this day I'm going to be celebrating a big faith day that night, and I can't go to my school council meeting and hear important things, or come and delegate a committee, or come to a trustee, board meeting. Then it expanded and went to a place where it then looked at, well, for students, they could be celebrating a faith night the night before or that night and not to have homework the next day or exam or those kind of things. And then it expanded to where you're talking that then we're now to a point where meetings, regular meetings in our board to, let's say, do interviewing or those kind of things were not scheduled on those days. Am I correct there, Superintendent Hart? That's the where, yes. So seeing as say, now that's the way it is. And you can, as you know, trustee and do start asking questions, you know, why did we stop business on a board, you know, not parent involvement, student involvement, but why did we stop board business? Now, you're right on, sorry, I seem to be talking more. You know, everyone, staff get their 3 faith days. That's part of a lot of contracts and stuff. So they get the 3 faith days so they can take those off. So there's a lot of conversation around how do we make a board work? What I will say, we were at 70 days previously, and now we're at 72.
Record, trust me, I appreciate that 100%, 1000%, because it was a lot, overwhelming, too much. And I appreciate the cutting it down, but I still can't support something where we're stopping the business of the board, impeding the business of the board.
Right, so can we, you know, if you want to separate that business of the board, because there's, as I went through about 3 things in this business of the board, there's parents, you know, coming to an event in the evening that is considered day of celebration, evening of celebration, or student activities that are based, or then we talk staff activities. That's how I see the 3 areas or pillars of how the red dot days are applied. Now, right now, it's only for information only, right? So, you know, you can think about this because my first question I'll ask Trustee Hart, you're going, this is phase 1, just to change the red dot days. In your phase 2, and that's evaluation, I assume you're going to bring another report that possibly could bring a change to the policy based on your committee's review.
And thank you, and through you, Chair. So yes, that would be accurate. When we're looking at timelines for phase 2, it would be to have something prepared for at some point in August to ensure that schools are ready to be responsive and inclusive of the students and the staff they serve.
And at that policy time, that would be a great time to, if you want to make an amendment to the policy to change the way it works, that would be a great time.
Yeah, and I think in regards to the question raised by Trustee Bailey, if you look at Appendix 1 around the decision around December 11th Board of Trustees around why red dot days, the intention was to be inclusive of students and staff and allow access to community to attend the various meetings that are hosted by the Board of Trustees.
And you know, one of the complications, you know, because I've been thinking about this for a while, that, okay, let's say we, you know, promotion interviews where we interview principals, like, well, we don't, but staff do. We'll say, well, we should carry on board business, but the staff may want to be able to take that day off. So, you know, if you think about a solution, you know, interview days, for example, are not just 1 day, they give 3 days. So if you have an interview day, just make sure one of them doesn't fall on that day. So it gives the flexibility of a staff member who wants to go through a promotion process, but also has their faith that, you know, that they want to celebrate too. And we want to be respectful of both. Does that, you know, so I'm just letting you think about an idea how to solve this problem, hopefully in August. So anyway, enough of me talking, I'm sorry, but this is a, you know, it's been around and it's been talked about a lot, and I appreciate the interjection and thoughtfulness, because we want to be respectful for
Absolutely.
want to be respectful for all people and inclusive, and that's part of our goal, our 4 goals, and this is part of that. But we also have to, as you said, we have to carry on board's business. but you know, we can maybe have different categories for that board business. Well, anyway, yes, Trustee Allen.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try to make my questions concise and quick. So first, thank you thank you for this presentation, Superintendent Hart. My question is regarding how, or I suppose the word I'm looking for is criteria. I see that in the report, it talks about looking at boards adjacent. What were the criteria used to identify the red dot dates?
Thank you for the question, Trustee Alves, and through you, Chair Green. The criteria that was used to identify the days was based on the jurisdictional scan of other school boards, looking at the absence data for our staff as well as students, and then a consultation meeting to share this information with our faith leaders, to share with them the dates that were identified and to receive any feedback from them based on the dates that were identified for the different faiths.
Thank you. And I suppose my next comment would be similar to my colleague, Trustee Ghadially, and some points made by Chair McDonald. You know, when I come from, you know, the business world, but also the public policy world and public service. And while I absolutely unequivocally support the need for students to have accommodations for them, for their families, and for us to be conscious of these days, for things that involve community directly, I think the separation between the school community and parents and families and board business as a corporation is distinctly important, specifically because we are a large business at the end of the day when it comes to work that we do as an institution apart from the day-to-day in classrooms. And I wonder if the red dot days impede the PDSB's administration's ability to conduct business. And by that, I mean, you know, us being able to meet for a board meeting or a committee meeting, things along those lines. So to Chair McDonald's earlier point of this being for information only and having the opportunity to discuss these things when they come to us for policy implementation, I think that's where I'm going to reserve my comments, perhaps even, you know, a notice of motion, because I'd like to have the conversations with my colleagues, but just for the information of the public online and my colleagues, that's where I am on my sentiment here. But I do just want to underscore my thanks, Superintendent Hart. I think that this is a mammoth project. It is a tremendous amount of work, and I think that our staff have done an outstanding job whittling this down from, I think the number was 77 red dot days down to the number we had before us. So just want to thank you again, and I appreciate the presentation this evening.
Thank you, Trustee Alves. I have some people online. So Jill Promoli, I think you were the first up, but I got a number one by Trustee Davies. So Trustee Davies, you can start.
Hi there. Through you, Mr. Chair, I want to thank everyone on this committee. This is a very important committee, and this discussion that you're having right now is incredibly important. Because as you find when things come to board, they're usually just, hey, the staff recommended it, the committee okayed it, let's just throw it through. But I really think that, and I really appreciate the debate going on tonight. I again am of the mindset that if we're open, we are open. We have to look at the snowball effect of this. For example, on June 11th, we have multiple things that trustees should go to. And I'm just wondering if instead of having to make that incredible choice between a couple of very important events, that if we didn't have any red dot days, maybe they could spread them out a little bit. And again, back to the business world, this doesn't happen. All of our staff have personal days to use, and to shut down the entire board on any day that is not a weekend, a holiday. I just like you to rethink that. That's all. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thanks for your comments. And if you can turn your hand off, and I'll turn it over to Trustee Promoli.
Thank you, Chair. And Trustee Davies was first, so well done. Before I go ahead with my points, I do want to acknowledge what Trustee Davies just said and mention that I have heard from a parent quite recently who has 3 students graduating on the same day with overlapping ceremonies and will not be able to go to all of their child's ceremonies. And it's because of the way that the scheduling is just sort of falling into place. I think this is a bigger challenge last year because we did have a very tight schedule because Eid was falling at the same time. But I understand that it's tight scheduling again this year. And so, you know, when we have a lot of things happening at the same time because we are limited to when things can be scheduled, it doesn't just make it hard for those of us who work at the board. It's also very challenging for the communities that we serve who may have children at different schools, who may have different obligations. And so I appreciate the conversation. And I am really grateful that we have seen this list come down significantly because I think it will add a lot of flexibility for our schools and for everyone who's doing this great work in education. So thank you for all your time and work on that, and to everybody involved in it. Really appreciate it. I do just have you know, just a comment I'd like to make as we're through you, Chair, as we're looking ahead to phase 2. And I just, you know, I have to touch on it. This has been a tough year in our board and in our community. And I think this is something that we're seeing it all the time, and we're hearing it from our neighbors, and we're seeing it in our schools and from our communities. And, you know, to everyone who's there tonight, we see you and we know that this is a hard time, and we hear you. And I want to say, you know, when we're talking about the days of significance, one of the things that we have heard often when people have reached out to us is that there is a feeling that there's a lack of transparency about the application process and the way that decisions are made about how days end up on the days of significance list and how the review process is managed. And that's something that I think can create some challenges when it comes to our communities knowing that they can trust us as a board and as their providers in education. The intent behind the days of significance list, it's so good. It's about building understanding and inclusion within our community. And this is an incredible community. And that's, you know, this is the reason that we chose to raise our family here, because it's a beautiful place with just everyone. But right now, what we're hearing so often from our community all around us is that the way that we as a board are implementing the days of significance list, it is causing harm. People are getting hurt. And I think we need to take that note. We need to hear people who are coming to talk to us, who are delegating, who are sending us emails, who are calling, who are telling us in schools that while the intention is there, we are not nailing this. And I think we have to hear that as a board and understand that people are hurting. And we have, I think, great intention here to make sure that everyone knows that they can come to our schools and feel safe and welcome. But there is something that's not quite landing because people are not feeling that sense of belonging. And I just think that we have to note that. So as we do move forward, and I know there's a lot of work ahead for staff, and I appreciate that. And I thank everyone who is going to be taking on this hard task. So thank you to everybody, because I know this is not a small thing. We have such an incredible, diverse community with so many different needs and so many different perspectives. So it's not going to be a small task in the months ahead. But I think it is really important that, as we're looking ahead to the list of days of significance, there needs to be more transparency and accountability in the process, so that the community does feel that sense of trust for the way that it's moving forward. And I think the list needs to be maintained with intention, so that anytime that a date is added, there's a reason for it and people understand why that date is on that list. And I think it's really important that a date doesn't just go on the list and then sit there and that's it, because I'm weary of anything that could read as being performative, like, okay, you have told us that this day is important to you, thanks, we put it on the list. I think it's important that if we are going to add something because our communities have told us that it's important, or because it may end up being challenging for other members of our community, that we are also providing our schools with the supports and resources that they need so that they can appropriately manage anything that may be coming up in conversation around these days. So it's just, again, thank you for everyone who has been putting in this work. I know that none of this is easy. I think that there is so much space to do this so well. And I think that, that the intention is good. So we just need to keep moving forward with the good intention, but recognize that the feedback is here, that we have some space for improvement, and to make sure that we are hearing people who are telling us that right now they're hurting and we are not making it better, that we're actually adding to that harm. So I had to put that in there because I know that work is in the months ahead. And again, thank you for the work so far. Thank you for everything that's coming. I know it's hard, but thank you for doing it. And to our communities who are out there and who have been reaching out and telling us how you're doing, we know that these are tough times and we see you, and we're going to keep working on this. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Promoli, for your comment. There's no question there, so we'll move on to, I have Chair Green online, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say, thank you to Superintendent Hart and the team, because a lot of things that have been happening and a lot of stuff that's happening around days of significance has caused both myself and the director a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of late nights of working through communities and so forth. And I am of the mindset that we're in the business of educating our children. We're in the system to educate our children. And I think when we look at these things, we got to continue to say, how is this helping to inspire confidence and hope in our student when we select? And that's the reason why we need to take a deeper dive and ask ourselves the question is, what does this signify in helping our student to reach their full potential in life when we're doing these things? And at the same time, we have to be reminded and constantly reminded, because as trustees, as staff, we all have, different, committees that we sit in. We also have to respond to our community. We have various different events on our plate. For the first time in the longest while, last week I had to say no to event that I'm supposed to be speaking at, because of what the amount of work and the overlapping. And if that's happening to me, I can't just imagine our staff within the schools and how they're dealing with stuff when their hands are tied. They can't schedule, they can't do this, they can't do that. So it is at this place, and I appreciate the list that has been brought down to this level. But again, I think as we move forward, this is going to take some serious, deeper conversation. And we, not only that, we listen to people, we let people know that we value you and we hear you, but we cannot please everyone. We're not going to be able to please everyone. And we have to have able to have those courageous conversation also. So needless to say, we also need to able to look at what's happening in the business world. A large corporation company, as Trustee Davis said, we need to look in what else is doing, what the government is doing, and so forth, and all of these pieces, and make sure that we're aligned. Okay, but I want to remind my colleagues that we are in the business to educate our children and to provide them the best outcome in life. And that's what we need to really, really be doing. And as we look at these, even myself, a man of faith, I personally believe that we need to ensure that our children, as we inspire them and as we work with them and work with family, they are seeing themselves. But at the same time, how is this helping them as we move forward? I'm talking about the conversation that is to come. How are these decisions are helping our students to reach their full potential in life? But so once again, I just want to say, because this is just here, but a lot of people don't see the work that goes on, even just to get to this point, the back and forth, Superintendent Hart can tell you, a lot of back and forth with myself, the directors and the faith groups and everything like that. It is just, it has been challenging. In the, I would like to see things become more easier, at the same time more transparent in how we do things. But at the same time, we're gonna have to have some really courageous conversation with our families as we move forward. So again, thank you, and thank you for allowing me just to say a few words, because the fact that I have been dealing with this, and it hasn't been easy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Green. And I have now Trustee Susan Benjamin online. Thanks for joining our meeting. Trustee Benjamin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair McDonald. Yeah, sorry I was late, but I also missed Superintendent's Hart first part of the report. However, I have a few questions, and I think I'm continuing from where Chair Green has left off. So we all know, as you mentioned, that the number of significant red dot days has increased from 7 to 77 or 70. And I'm quite sure that in the coming years, it's going to increase more and more if we keep on at this pace. The second thing is, today we are in 2024.
Trustee Benjamin, let's just focus one question at a time. I think it's,
No, I'm just making a statement. So it has increased. So I'm just trying to say.
Trustee Benjamin.
Sorry.
I think you missed it, that the days have gone down from 77 to 17.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Maybe I missed it. I thought it's gone up. Okay.
No, it's gone down.
Okay. Thank you for correcting me, Chair. But today we are in a different world from even 5 years ago, and the situation is different. So my question is, how do we balance this with our identity as a public school board that is secular? So that's one question. And the other thing is, as Chair Green pointed out, our priority is education. And we need to focus on education, which is most important. And in the process, we also have our policies, the EDI policies, which are recognizing the identities of our students, of our communities, and so on. And so we must continue with that focus. And we will continue to do that. So I only am requesting, as Chair Green has said, let us focus on education as our priority and continue to respect the cultural, ethnic, national, all identities of our students, which we are doing and which we will continue to do. And the last thing that I wanted to just share.
Just wait. Okay, Benjamin, please, we can. I want you to have a question in there. I'd like to have a question asked and then answered, because I've even forgotten what the first question was. Trustee Hart, do you remember what the question was? And are you able to answer that?
I do believe I recall what the first question was, but let me see if I can clarify. So thank you, Trustee Benjamin, and through you, Chair. So to the point that was raised by Chair McDonald, the red dot days have been reduced significantly from 70 red dot days down to 18 for the upcoming school year. And in regards to the fact that we are a secular organization, the intention behind red dot days was really around centering students and staff intersectional identities and an opportunity to create more inclusive schools. And so allow students, staff, and families to be able to engage in evening events that we may be hosting at the school level or at the system level, to allow students to be able to, participate in relevant learning and opportunities. And the reduction in the days and the alignment is comparative to our neighboring school boards like TDSB, York, Ottawa, Carleton. And I think thinking about, while we affirm and we focus on high expectations and education and outcomes for our students, also ensuring that we're, honoring the diversity of the faith and creed, groups that we serve and how they observe, and creating space for that.
Okay, thank you. All right, so as I said, once again, I would like to affirm that we are a secular board and our focus is on education. So some of these dot days are, religious. And so that is where maybe the conflicts or the differences come up. So maybe we need to have a serious discussion on this. That's all that I'll have to say. I have to say, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Benjamin. I much appreciate it. So I have Trustee Kathy McDonald online. The mic is now yours, or floor is now yours. I think we're not hearing you, Kathy. Is your mic on? No, nothing.
You want to go and come back in?
Is it on your computer? You press something on your keyboard. It's muted. So
Type the question in the chat.
No, just exit and come back.
That too, that works too.
I don't know. You want to call on your phone? Okay, I saw the mute button there on mute.
No.
No.
Ask her to go in and come back.
No, don't hear you.
Should exit and come back.
So we're recommending exiting and come back if you can hear us. Okay, she's gone. Good. We have another question. Back to Will Davies. Trustee Davies.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I want to thank this committee for what they're doing. We reduced the days by 50 some odd days. How is the community going to be informed of that? And are we going to have 50 meetings like we had tonight over one day, which was Nakba Day? Are we going to have 50 meetings like this? And again, a good solid proposal is eliminate them all.
Superintendent Hart, are you able to answer that question?
Trustee, thank you for the question, Trustee Davies, and through you, Chair McDonald. This phase of the review focuses only on faith and creed days. And so started by looking at those dates first, knowing that it was timely around the scheduling of meetings and planning for the upcoming school year. And phase 2 will be looking at the other days on the calendar and then kind of bringing a plan forward. So in regards to your question around a specific date, I can't speak specifically about that piece for this particular report because today's really focused on faith and creed days only.
But I guess my question is, like, those faith and creeds that their days have been taken off the red dot days, who is informing them? How are we informing them so we don't have more meetings like tonight?
So in terms of again, thank you for the question, Trustee Davies, and through you, Chair McDonald. We will be developing a communication plan around the red dot days, faith and creed for the upcoming school year, as well as supporting principals in continuing to be responsive in their planning and scheduling of events, which principals have, overall managed this year, given the volume of days. So I think that next year we'll be building out communication, both internal and external, around the faith and creed days, which is indicated in the report as a next step.
Thank you so much for that.
Right, and I just want to add to our previous conversation, what we do with those days is still open for interpretation. And to add to the comment, we create a calendar that is, first of all, inward focusing that all staff get to see, but we also have the external calendar so everyone knows transparently of these days and presently what we do with those days, and if that changes through motions or stuff later, that could change. Okay, has Trustee McDonald returned? Yes, thank you. Can we hear you?
No.
No. Oh my.
That's a question in the chat.
Can you type, please? I see fingers typing, so please be patient as we go through that. And I'll watch the chat.
Can you read it out as well?
Sorry?
You'll read it out as well.
Oh, I'm not good at reading. I'll read this.
Is it at the long game?
You should have took a break.
Long day.
Working from 9 o'clock this morning?
9, but started at 7. My first email out the door. On my way in here.
Washington's not far away.
That's my last call on the way to here, 5:34. Busy. Yeah.
No, I know it's in the first. Did she call you? Did she call you?
I think if you have a couple minutes, if not, that's okay.
No.
I won't be probably 5 minutes, 3 topics.
Any luck there, Kathy? Or-
You want to give me your question and I'll repeat it?
Yeah, oh yeah, so there you go, ask her. Yeah, yeah.
You're on speaker.
Yes.
Okay, great. Let's start with Rabbi Anderson Diamond. But I think it's important to remember what the past US institution voted on that said that it should be honestly treated all resolved. We're making the right thing. So these people get upset. And I think that they are minimal. This is observing the days of significance that the Ministry of Education recognizes. And sorry, I read that days because I realized we're focused this report on red dot days. And going forward, because I know at some point there'll be a report coming about days of significance. And you know, the comments are made that yes, some people may be upset. But I remember when this board has been through, for example, the private cares, speak to sex ed, you know, the famous invitation sex ed curriculum. And we can't let people who are being upset, especially for reasons that are not always rooted in equity and in human rights grounds of all our students, that we should ensure that we remain committed to doing what is right. And while we may be a secular board, we have a lot of a huge shift in our demographics. I remember principals in one of my schools going into school and asking kids to raise their hands if they are they identify as a visible minority. And nobody identified as a visible minority. It has changed. And we have a very diverse population, right? Even when you have positions, for example, there was a time when the majority of our students were Christian. That is no longer so. And we have to bear that in mind when we are making decisions and understand that we should have communication to the public as to why we do what we do. And I think that's very important to remember. That's why we comment. Another thing I'm going to talk about too is you read, for example, the land acknowledgement, right? Meetings, almost like every meeting, every event, right? And we have to reflect that we're not seen as being performative, because if we're truly committed, for example, to our acknowledgement, we should also be sensitive to where that issue is happening in other parts of the world and affecting students, our students. It's not our students, the students are the kind of people.
Okay. That's okay. Thank you. Seeing no more questions or comments on this item, it's on the floor, right? And it's on the floor. So all those in receipt of this information, so be it. It's passed.